Hi, ChickenboneJohn here again, and welcome to another episode of Making a Cigar Box Guitar. This time we're going to be fitting the hardware onto our box. By now you should have got your neck all ready, fretted, the box all cut out with your sound holes, everything ready to start fitting this together and getting it to come together as a guitar. Okay, let's get on with it. Okay, so here's our box all ready. We've cut this out to fit one of these pickups. We call them our compact pickup. It's half a precision bass pickup effectively. So these come with the fixing lugs. These were originally designed to be screwed down into the body of a guitar. So what we want to do is to just alter these lugs here so it sits at the right height. Now let's have a look at this. If we look at the relationship between the top of the body and the neck, we can see this pickup wants to be going in at sort of this height. If I turn it round, it'll be a little clearer. So the top of the pickup wants to be round about near the top of the fretboard. Any higher, and obviously the strings we're going to catch on it. If it's too low, we'll lose a little bit of the signal. So I'm looking at that. And if I have a look at where this lug is, you can see it's about halfway down that lug. Now if I cut off half of that lug, the bottom part, that should sit into that hole just nicely. So let's do that first. Okay, so here's my pickup, and I want to cut off the bottom part of this lug. I've just got a little jig here which is lined up to do that. So if I cut across here, that's about halfway. You can do this totally freehand, but this is a little, or you can just put a little block under there, and I'm just going to cut across there. Any fine tooth saw will do. We're going to cut halfway, so that should get us about halfway down that lug, and then if I cut the rest of it from the other direction, don't have to be too accurate with this because you're not going to see this bit, fortunately, because my cutting's not too clever today. That's that done, and I'm going to do the other half here. We'll do the other side, the same thing. It's just a little block here which is going to steady my saw. That's all it is. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Cut back to the body of the guitar. You just need to make sure your wires and all that are out of the way, so you're not going to chop them off. And we're going to take the other one off. There we go. So as you can see, those lugs have been reduced in thickness. I can just clean that up now. I'm just going to use a file. I'm going to use the safe edge against the body of the pickup. I can just clean that up a wee bit to make sure that's nice and flat and that they're both about the same height. That looks like that's about right. So here's our cigar box. Here's our pickup prepped. So hopefully, with a bit of luck and a following winds, we can just drop that in, press that there, and that should be about right. This is going to be non-adjustable. We're just going to screw this down. Then we need to see how much that's projecting underneath, so I can determine how much I need to cut the neck. I say we can just simply drop that in here. All that needs are 2 screws in here to fix it in place. And you can use something like a machine head screw or something a little bit bigger just to hold that in. And then look to see how far down if you can see, the pickup and the magnet is projecting. Now in this case it's not very much at all, which is good news in terms of how much we need to remove from the neck stick. So let's just get that sorted out now. We'll take that out. I'm going to put the neck in here. I'm just going to mark on here where my pickup is, so I know where to notch. Now just watch out though, because to get this neck in I'll need to slide it. So I'm going to mark there. That's really where I want to take that out. It was only a few millimeters. Always just cut the minimum amount out of that neck that you can get away with. That's barely coming out. I think 5 millimeters is going to do it. So I'm going to gauge that in by hand. So I've got a little bit of clearance, so I know it's not going to snag. That is going to be plenty. And can you see we've got lots of thickness left here. Indeed, that is the same thickness as the rest of my neck. That's perfect really, so that all the strength is maintained. So all we need to do is to notch this out. I'm just going to cut across here with my tenon saw and then knock it out with a chisel saw. And we're going to use our old friend the bench hook, just hooked onto there for a bit of stability. This is a little awkward. I'll try not to get in the shot too much. I'm using an old little set square to make sure I'm at right angles, just to get started. Try and keep your plane flat so you get the same depth of cut. You can see I'm shallow there, so I need to bring the nose of the saw down slightly. That looks better. We'll start the other cut. As I say, if you're using something like this, just keep that sort of square for rough work like this. Don't use it for measuring. You will damage it. I've not put a mark on the other side, so I really ought to. So let's do that. We can see what we're doing a bit better. So we can just put some more rough cuts through here. I'll put one in the middle. Another one here. These don't need to be accurate as long as you don't go too deep with them. That looks about okay to me. And then all we need to do is to take that out with a chisel. And usually I'll go about halfway down. I don't go all the way to the line. Slope it back slightly so I'm not going to dig in. You don't need much pressure. You don't need to hit very hard. Use a mallet. Couldn't find my wooden mallet, so I'm just using a soft-faced plastic faced mallet there. Don't use a hammer with a chisel. You may not even need a hammer or a mallet. You can just put some weight into it and the thing will come out on its own accord. If I actually put that across here against the bench hook, you can see what we're doing. We're trying to get that level across here. I'm doing this way so you can see effectively what we're doing. So I can do that, go down to the line. We could probably use a slightly wider chisel. because it's quite a wide cut, but just go in little bites. Do the other side. Coming down to my line now. So there we go. So we could clean that up a little bit more. With that fitted in there, we should have got the clearance. Just drop that in. Pull the neck back. Perfect. So that's seated nicely. So we can screw that in place now. I'll just do a little pilot hole here. That's it. And you can fix that with whatever screw you got to hand. Machine head type screw will do the job. Yep, that's not going to pass through the hole there. So you can just pop that on there. I say these are not going to be adjustable. This is a fixed height pickup. Doing it this way. Cheap and cheerful using these. Although these are a bass pickup, it doesn't particularly affect the sound. You know, it'll pick up all the frequencies you want. So don't worry about the fact that you're using a bass pickup on a regular electric guitar. That's that in there. Now, in case you are putting in a different type of pickup, the procedure is very similar. I'll just show you. Here's one we've got routed for a humbucker without a surround. Well, this is one of our ordinary humbuckers, no surround. This is a bare brass pickup. Just take that protective foil on, and that's just going to fit straight into there. And all there is to this, we take out the adjuster screws. Now we've already got this cut to shape and holes drilled in there. All we do, put your screws through there, a little bit tight that should be a fairly free fit. There you go. Just needed a little bit of a push. That's it. So sometimes you might have to cut the springs down or rubbish through your parts box, but all we're doing is making sure that that spring is now engaging on that, and we do the same on the other one. You should be able to feel it biting. There we go. Before you cut your neck with all of these type of pickups, get them roughly in the right position. You can adjust the height, so you might want to leave yourself a little bit of slack underneath the pickup. So you can see on this we've got a bit more projection than the other. Not that much, we've raised that quite a lot. So again, I'd be wanting to take maybe 8mm out of that to make sure I've got enough room underneath for that to move up and down. See, that's in quite neatly there. If you want to use a humbucker in a surround like this hole can be a lot more raggedy because this is going to cover it. You see, I've cut here so that the lugs are going to fit in. So that's just dropped into there, and again, same sort of thing underneath there. You can see we probably need to cut out about 8mm to make sure that can rise and fall. Again, very simply, just make sure it's all squared up. Drill 4 pilot holes in here and you get the screws with these to fix them in place. That's all there is to actually fixing the pickup here. So what have we got left to do? Not much. We're going to leave these holes bare, but if you wanted to put a trim on them, you can do that, or back it with a piece of mesh glued on from the underneath. That's cool as well. We're going to put our control pots in. There's typically a couple of different types. This is the type with the plain shaft, and for that you want this type of knob which has got a grub screw in it to grab onto that. These push fit ones like this, which have got that plastic insert, won't fit. For that type of knob you need the ones with what they call a splined shaft, you see, with a split in it, and that will simply push fit. Okay, so depending on what type of pot that you have, either the one with the plain shaft or the spline shaft, that will sort of determine what type of knobs you're going to be using. Here, because we've got a single coil pickup, we're going to be using 250k ohm pots, and people get a little bit confused about this, and they'll look on the back for the marking, and usually these are just the manufacturer's codes on the back. But if you look here on the front, here just on the Bakelite is the value, and you should be able to see on that it says A250K. And here's another one, if it's going to focus. That's a B250K. If you're putting in humbuckers, then you'd generally go for the 500, an A and a B500. Now, the A and a B, they refer to the characteristics of what they call the taper. There's no right and wrong on this. The A is the logarithmic or audio taper. The B is the linear. That's the convention, and it's normal to put the A, the log, in the volume position, and the linear, the B, in the tone position. But we often put them in the other way round. Sometimes some people feel they get a more even response with the linear on the volume, even though theoretically that shouldn't work. Some people will put A's in both, so they've got log pots in both, some manufacturers. So I think it's a matter of what suits you. You can either have A and B, B and A, or two A's. You could probably. I'll take the little nut and bolt off these. Sorry, I'll just take the little washer off, and as you can see, hope you can see, this has got a little lug here which is designed to stop it rotating. I don't really want that, so I'm just going to snap that off and discard it, and then I'm almost ready to put that in. Before I do that, I'm just going to run a file across the back just to clean up the pot, ready for soldering. So that's my A. So this time I'm going to use my A, the log pot, as a volume. As you can see, washer and the nut, and then that should, if you have done this correctly, we've recessed those, if you remember we counterbored those, that's fine. And we're going to do the same with the B, the linear pot. As I say, you could have these the other way around, and we often do put them in the other way around. People will tell you it's wrong, but that's the way we sometimes do it. And again, we're going to roughen the back. It cleans any grease and residue, and we find you just get a little bit better purchase with the soldering. And then we're just going to drop our washer and the nut on there. Once they're in, we're just going to tighten them. Don't be tempted to tighten them with a pair of pliers. Chances are you'll slip and you'll mark your lovely pretty box. Hold the pot so it doesn't spin around, and then just tighten with your spanner. That's all there is to it. You don't need to go mad with this, as long as it's just going to stop them from rotating. Okay, if you want to, you can put your knobs on now. I've got my jack socket on a little plate, because if you remember, that's a bit thick for the shaft of that. Again, that needs tightening. That was a 10mm spanner for those, and this is a 13 for these jack sockets, for these Neutrik jacks. And all I'm going to do is drill 4 pilot holes in there and put some screws in. On these little plastic ones, on these plastic jack plates, we usually use pickguard screws. These things are countersunk and designed for that sort of thing. Ooh, let's get that right. There we go. And I just need to put some screws in there. So we just drilled a little pilot hole. It does help stop it splitting. Little thing, when you're putting together things like this, which have got a few screws, start each one. Don't put one screw in and then seat it all the way down. It's just a good practice, whether you're bolting something up or putting screws in that have got, you know, let's say in this case where there are 4 of them, go round. I'm sort of going crisscross, so if you drilled slightly out of true, the screws will go in a lot more evenly. You know, if you put one in all the way and one of your other screws is slightly out of alignment, either it'll pull it out of shape, or if you're unlucky it can even split the corner on something that's quite weak, like a little plastic plate like that. So there we are, that's all in neatly. A couple of other things I'm going to put in. We'll put some strap buttons, and you see what we've done here, we've put in reinforcement here and in here to take our strap buttons. So all we're going to do is simply drill in about the right position. I'm just eyeballing it. Yeah, it's always good practice to drill a pilot hole. It makes putting the screw in easier. There's less damage of either splitting the wood or indeed of actually, you know, snapping the screw off. Some of these screws are not of the best quality. These are our end pin and screws, and I'm just going to put a little bit of beeswax on the thread. Makes it that much easier to go in. Got the little felt washers on these, which just stop marking up the finish on your guitar. Most of the cases it doesn't matter. If you've got a lacquer guitar, that's why they start putting them on. And then, you know, that's all there is to it. And if you've got the right size pilot hole, that will go in nice and easy and give you a secure fix. If you've drilled it too big, it can actually, you know, it's going to strip the hole out. Or if you drill it too tight, as I say, a little bit of wax on there always helps. If you drill it too tight, you can either split the wood or snap off the screw, which is a real pain. You do not want to do that. Here we go. Not too tight, you can feel when that's right. So we've got the box pretty well ready now. This is just about ready for wiring. We'll fit the rest of the hardware to the neck. Right, we're going to fit the machine heads. We'll do 2 different types. This is the ones with the screw down bushings. They've got a washer and a bushing, which naturally enough screws down into the body of the machine head. So we prepped this by drilling 10mm holes. We'll just offer that up, put the washer on. You'll see on these, the way usually stamped, they've got a more rounded face and a flatter face. You're on it with the rounder bit on there. and just put that in finger tight. That's all you need to do. Just put them in finger tight. Go around all three of them. Check that your washers are the right way up. That's one. Yep. Once we've got these sort of finger tight, we'll just pinch them up using a spanner. This is a 10mm, and again, don't be tempted to use a pair of pliers. If you slip, you'll make a real mess. So I'm just going to tighten these down until I just get a bit of resistance, so there's enough wiggle room for me to jiggle them about. Now, and then what we want is to get that aligned so they're nice and square, making sure these are level. You can just pinch them up a tiny bit more, just so they don't slip. Oops. You know, you do need to hold on to the cog, so on the button, sorry, to stop it turning. Then we flip it back round, make sure everything is nicely aligned, and then we're ready to fix them. And for this, I'm just going to drill a little pilot hole. Just going to drill a pilot hole with a 1mm drill. You can probably use a 1.5 as well. Be careful that you don't drill right the way through the headstock. It's possible to do that, especially with something like this where you've got a sharp drill bit and you're a bit vigorous, it might go through. So as I say, that's a 1mm. You can get a 1.5, depends on the size of the screws. You'll know that your machine head screws are very tiny, so you don't want them snapping off. So to increase the chances that you're going to do a good job, a little bit of wax. I like this beeswax. You can use candle wax, and I've got a few blocks of old ski racing wax, but this stuff seems to be the nicest. It seems to stick on the thread. Sometimes ordinary candle wax doesn't seem to stick on the thread and seems to get wiped off. So, you know, it's only a $1.50 a block from your local hardware store. When you're putting these in, as soon as you feel there any resistance, stop turning. You must don't give in to the temptation to give it another quarter turn, because all these are doing is they're stopping the machine head rotating. They're not really fixing it to it. So that as soon as you feel any resistance, that's it. Don't go in any harder, and then just check they're all still in alignment, and then you can just pinch this. I'm still holding the key, the button, because it'll still rotate against the screw. Again, I'm not torquing those down too much. I don't want to be crushing that, and I can just check to make sure that that does not pull them down any further. That's it. I'm not going to go anywhere else. That's your machine heads on. A little tip on some machine heads like these, you may find the buttons are attached by a screw that adjusts the tension. That feels a little loose, that one, and you can just pinch that up, and it will just tend to compress these washers. There's a couple of spring washers and usually a nylon washer, so you can just do that so they've all got the same nice smooth feel. The other type of machine head we've got is this, with push-in bushings like these. Okay, we've got a couple of sorts. These are the open back. This is our own Grover Stay Tight style machine heads. They're very nice. They're on a cast base rather than a pressed steel base. Very chunky. Again, proper adjuster screws. You know, these are not just riveted on. Slot head wheel screws there. Or we've got these, which are the Clusen copies. These are the Epiphone style Clusen copies. Now, we'd already got these holes about right. Now I'm going to just ream that ever so slightly. These can vary the hole size, so I like to just be able to ream that out. This is a cheap violin peg reamer. I've got it taped off round about where I like it to be. These bushing sizes do seem to vary quite a lot from manufacturer to manufacturer, so I'm not going to give you an exact size. I would say, you know, you need to check, do a trial fitting on a scrap piece of timber, and I'm just going to tap them in with a soft-faced hammer. That's it. You should be able to get them started. You don't want the fit so tight, because if the fit fits really tight, you could split your machine head, and after all this work, split the headstock. After all this work, you do not want that, so just check that they're all seated down nicely, and then it's the same sort of procedure. Check to see how they're fitting. There's plenty of room. And we are going to do exactly the same thing. Drill a pilot hole and fix them in place. So you just need to hold it steady. So it's going to be nice and parallel. There we go. This is a job I always do this way. I don't think I ever take these to the pillar drill to do. Again, a little bit of beeswax on your screws, and as before, start one and start the other screw. Don't put one in and take that down all the way. You want to work these down so that if you need to adjust the alignment, you can. Obviously you want to get the screw hole started as bang on as you can, and as soon as you feel that biting, that's it. Don't go any harder than that, and that's our machine head in, and we just repeat. So I'm just going to hold that in place. That's important that you get this centered. A little bit of care and precision is going to give you a nicer finished job. Be careful you don't. There's a little bit of slack in these, so be careful. You know, you can push them, pull them into the wrong position. So just be careful that you've not done that and drill right into the eye of the fixing hole. Again, every time, a little bit of wax or soap. Soap works as well. I don't try using oil. Yeah, in theory it will work, but what it can do is soak into the timber and spoil your finish. Even though you may have already got some finish on, particularly if it's a light coloured wood, it can actually bleed all the way through the timber and show. I'm telling you this because I've done it myself, thinking, oh, I haven't got any candle wax, but I've got a can of 3-in-1 oil, put a bit of 3-in-1 oil on the screw or into the hole, and then you find it's bled and it shows. So that's a shortcut to be avoided. So always use a little bit of wax or a bit of soap, but not oil. And again, as soon as you feel the resistance, that's not all the way down, that one. That's just beginning to pinch. That's beginning to pinch. And then just give them a little wiggle to make sure the base plate isn't moving. And you just feel the machine heads. They don't need adjusting. They're fine just as they come from the factory. That's our machine heads on. The next thing we've got to do, we're just going to put some rivets in here. So the strings are not going to cut like cheese wires. Now there's something we can do here, and that's to earth the strings. We're going to use a bridge with a fret wire saddle. So if we earth one of these strings, the continuity of this type of thing, the continuity of this wire is going to make sure all 3 strings are earthed. So we only need to earth one of these. Fiddly little job, but what we're going to do, just check that these are running all the way through. That's okay. It's gone all the way through, a little bit tight. And I'm going to drill in here until I hit that. It's a fiddly operation, but it is worth earthing your strings. I didn't always used to do this, and then a customer complained that his guitar was buzzing and it wasn't earthed. After that, every guitar gets earthed. Oh, by the way, you don't need to do this on a piezo pickup guitar. Just get that in line. What I'm doing, I'm sighting down the drill and I'm going to aim for that other one. Don't rush this. The last thing you want to do is to break a drill bit. I can feel its touch of that now. I'm going to take that out, push that out, and I'm just going to drill through that. Check, and I'm going to run the drill through it. I've got a clear hole. And then what I need to do is just run that out so that that wire is not going to inhibit the top closing. So I'm just going to make a way out for it by just going in here, scooping a tiny little hole and drill across here. Oh, that was coming out through the side of the neck inside the box. Okay, what we're going to do is to thread a piece of wire through this hole and trap it in these rivets. I'm just going to use a piece of ordinary equipment wire here. I'm just going to take off one end. That's going to be soldered to the back of my pot. Just lightly, just very lightly score that with a knife so the insulation will break, and then what I'll do is twist that so get a nice compact wire, and then just introduce that into the hole. Then I'm just going to feed a drill bit through there to push that through. There we go. Wires come through, and then if I pull my drill bit out, that is going to not do that drill any good. It's not going to do that drill any good, but there we go. Our wire's through. Trim that off, and what I'm going to do is trap that with one of these rivets. I'm just going to prep this rivet by knocking the pin out of it, and what I do, I just put it on the end of my bench like that, knock the pin out, then I take a spare rivet and I thread that on head to head, and that pin is going to act as a guide. Hold that down where that wire's there, and then just tap that in. Just make sure that your wire's engaged and it's not being cut as the rivet goes in. And then that will withdraw, and you can repeat that just on the edge of the bench. Tap the pin, dispose of it, thread another rivet head to head, that goes in there. Gently just check that you're not severing that wire. That's it, and then the rest of your wire we can thread in there, and that's going to neatly go inside our box and allow us to earth that to either your jack socket or the back of your pots. Nice and neat. And then simply repeat with the rest of your pins. Simply repeat with the rest of the rivets. And same thing. Put that on head to head. Done. We do sometimes put in more fancier bushings or ferrules in here. They look nicer, look neater, but they do the same job. And doing this little thing with the wire means these ferrules are doing two jobs. They're stopping the wood from getting cut, and they give you a earthing point for your strings. Nice and easy. This doesn't work if you're using a bridge that's got a bone or wooden saddle. You need a piece of metal, whether it's a piece of fret wire or a bolt as your bridge. Otherwise, if you're using a wooden or bone saddle, you would have to earth each of the three strings individually, which is a bit of a pain. You know, you could have a little plate or something. There are more, you know, there's several ways of doing it. So there you go. Hopefully that's our three ferrules in there, neatly done. We've got our pickup, our controls, our jack socket, our end pins, our machine heads all fitted, and we're now ready for wiring and final assembly. Okay, I hope that wasn't too difficult to follow, and if you followed it, you should have a guitar now that's got all your hardware on it, machine heads, everything you need on here to get the thing to work. All we need to do now is wire it up, fix the neck in permanently, get some strings on, and get the thing set up. Okay, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.